Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to another session in FortiConnection. This is our career series. I'm Karin Shopen, and joining me today is Samantha, co-founders of Latinas Cyber. We already have a long conversation as preparation to this session, so I'm going to start directly diving in. Samantha, share with us, how did you find yourself in this awesome, crazy field of cybersecurity?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Corinne. It's a funny story. So I started in political science as an undergrad at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And then I segued into a master's at the university in technology systems and information systems and technology management. And I remember when I started, I was like, I have this liberal arts background. I love strategy. I love writing. And then I have this sort of technical background. Like, what space can I enter that like marries the both, where I don't have to give one up? And I remember there was an alumni from my program that came to an informational session, and he was saying, he's like, I think you'd be really great for cybersecurity. And there was this moment where we were like, what? You're like, I have no idea. I don't think so. And he kind of, for me, walked me through like, no, this is how your story falls into it. This is how you're able to integrate your liberal arts and kind of regulatory background into your technical background. And here's how we're going to get you through it. And ultimately, one thing led to another, and I ended up getting the position, and it totally changed my life. I ended up being in cybersecurity at KPMG in their strategy and governance practice for over 3 years. It was an incredible start to my career, and it just really started my passion for cyber and for being a woman in the space.
So leading marketing in cyberspace for a couple of years now, what I'm hearing is we have really bad marketing for cyber field because you didn't know about it. Someone walked you through it and convinced you that your skill set fit the field, which again, we're asked to promote it correctly. And then you were able to do the transition due to this awesome, experience of someone guiding you and walking you through and basically removing all of your, belief about what is needed to join the field, and you've done that successfully for many years now. So yeah. The question and the reason we are here is because you're also the co-founder of Latinas Cyber. How does that story contribute to that idea? Like, how did you get to found that company?
Absolutely. So I think it's a pandemic story. We were all in this virtual space, and actually Angela Hill reached out to us. She's one of our co-founders, and she reached out to 8 women virtually during the pandemic. And it was very much like an idea baby, where she says, I have this crazy idea. I bought this domain like years ago, but I need the community. Like, I have to find the team that it's going to take to execute on this idea. And we came together and we kind of started building through, well, what would our message be? What our branding is? Like, what is our niche demographic within a space of so many other cybersecurity organizations? And ultimately, what we really arrived at is we wanted to focus on it from being like your cyber big sister, the way that we break down the community and we make it relatable and we make it more of a peer-to-peer approach for cultivating support, mentorship, and overall career development for women pursuing careers in cybersecurity. Today, there's 3 of us in our executive position. It's Angela Hill, who is our president, Vanessa Morales, who is our executive director, and then me, who's your vice president. And we've been able to cover so many things. And one of the biggest things that we've seen is just an outpouring of support and community, both professionally and personally, of people who are saying, we're here supporting whatever it is that you're accomplishing and doing and creating the space for other women. So it's been a huge point of gratitude for us.
And it is tied to your story, going back to, there are a lot of women who are not even exposed. There is a belief within them that this is a very technical field, that you have to be an engineer to get in, that, a lot of it is like, I think we talked about it, the geeky kids in school, or, they're the ones who are entitled to go into those more high-tech field. And it sounds like what you're doing is making it approachable and reliable, kind of people can relate to it. It's not, those people that you see in movies all the time. Yes, we're all smart, but still, you can join in, and there is a path for everyone to join there. And I think that in many cases for women, there is this lack of awareness that the field even exists. And you're actually serving both sides. You're serving the community of women through this awareness, but you're also serving us. We have a skill gap that is pretty daunting. We don't have enough people coming into our field and supporting the roles that we have. And all of us in it are kind of exhausted. So I think you find the right place where you're helping all of us that are already inside the cybersecurity environment by bringing more people and making it approachable. And the mentorship is something that I actually want us to touch upon. It seems that this was your experience as well. This is my experience as well. How do you go about it? How do you provide that support to move into that field, but also to stay in it?
I love this question. And I love that you approached it from twofold. Those entering the career field and those already there, they're like, okay, like, what do I do now? Like, how do I give back? And we created this sort of passion to purpose pipeline with our mentorship academy. We actually just finished this weekend our first annual program. Essentially what we did is we opened up applications and then we accepted 15 women, either starting in cybersecurity or transitioning into it, across all different backgrounds and different age levels. And ultimately we focused on 4 major categories. We focused on cybersecurity domain experience. So and we spoke with recruiters from Amazon that spoke about, like, here are the different career fields. Here are the different words that we use to tag these spaces, the roles and responsibilities. Here's what I'm looking for as a recruiter. That's a really important, valuable aspect to get from. We also covered self-care and sort of avoiding burnout. How do I maintain my own personal sense of health and wealth mentally in these spaces? And how do I kind of overcome these limiting beliefs, which are sometimes the biggest barrier when it comes to entering a career field? We kind of tell ourselves a totally different story than actually the reality is. Then we also focused on getting to understand your personal branding, your networking capabilities, because cybersecurity is also about your network, both literally and also figuratively. But it really kind of talks about, like, how do you build relationships with others? How do you get others to advocate for you? How do you kind of advocate for yourself? We had them work on resumes and elevator pitches. And then most recently, we had them do mock panel interviews in a group setting with executive levels from Google. And so this very kind of multidimensional experience was our approach in helping mentorship and say, hey, we're here with you. We're here to tell our story, but we're also here to allow you to step into yours and allow the door to be open for you to bring others with you. And something that we also heard from our interviewees and from other individuals that were supporting our program were like, I'm in these spaces and I just want to give back. Like, when we sent out the sign-up list for interviews and for talking positions, we actually had way more people than we could even accommodate. So you can see that there's just like this need and this desire from individuals already in these spaces to say, like, I want to help out. Like, what can I do? What can I be a part of? What can I support in those spaces? So ultimately, I think there's room for everyone when they're starting. And one of the pieces of feedback when we ended the program, they said, it's just really helpful to know the little pieces that add up to build the foundation of a career space, and to know that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to take different unconventional paths to get there. And something I always talk about is I failed my first semester of college, and I was just like, I think my world is over. I don't know, freshman year Sam would have thought it was over, but ultimately it really taught me to not be afraid of failure, and to know that even though you kind of have these challenges and these obstacles in your life at some point, that doesn't mean you need to end up there. And I actually ended up speaking at my college graduation at the very end of it. And so it was just this like very full circle experience. And that's what I want for other women too. I want them to, experience those challenges because they're normal parts of life. We're not always going to get it right, but to know that you can always overcome it, and that there's space for you in these environments, and that we're here ready to mentor and help and support you. And there's a whole team of us. there's a whole group of people at Fortinet, at Latinas in Cyber, and everyone else that's just ready to help you out.
And I really like how you synthesized the quality. So one of them was the ability to translate strength and capabilities between fields. And I think this is very important, because if you transition from a different field, you already have a skill set. You also have your personality trait, you have your knowledge base. All of this is not lost. You're actually moving it into a different field, and we all benefit from it. And actually in our field, what I find is that we need the people who will fail, because innovation doesn't go without failing. So if you're the person who are actually against taking risk and failing, you will not be able to move that field necessarily forward, because everything that we do is new. We try new thing all the time. It's a gorgeous field. There is a attacker on the other side who constantly innovate. They're well financed and have great tools. We always have to be a step ahead of them. You have to predict. You have to try new things. And as you build technologies, as you build innovation, failure is how you learn. Otherwise you cannot. So I think that the points that you talk about are great personality trait as you move between fields, but also as you gain the confidence to shift the world, like to lead change. and it's critical in those cutting edge places that we all play with. And by the way, across all of our life, it's not just our field of technology. I
Yeah.
wanted to comment one. Sorry.
I just wanted to allude to one comment that you made about always learning. We had a college student in our mentorship program, and she prefaced, saying, "Sorry, guys, I don't have a lot of experience, but I want to do this." And one of the points of feedback that she received was saying, "You never need to start with that because you have life experience, you have student experience. Right now your learning muscle is as active as it will ever be because you're constantly absorbing new information, and that in and of itself is a skill set. And as you mentioned, this career field is constantly changing. What's real today and what's relevant tomorrow is going to change 6 months from now." So ultimately, like that core skill set of being able to learn, of being able to adapt, of being able to try new things, to take risks, and to really push yourself beyond is ultimately what's most important. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and we feel the same. I'm in this field for so long that technology constantly evolves. Like you're constantly running for data, which will get me to my next question. There are a lot of people who are concerned with not having necessarily the knowledge within that field. So we talk about the interview process and how you get in and how do you learn to correlate between requirement from cybersecurity and your current skill set. But you also offer to Fortinet in some of it, in addition to your own capabilities, training that are cybersecurity specific. Could
Mhm.
you share more on that program?
Absolutely. And so Fortinet has an incredible educational outreach program in which they host leveling of different certifications from 1 through 4. And it's essentially their Fortinet Training Institute program. And I think it's a really critical way of an entry level approach into that sort of educational side of it. And it also is transitional. It kind of walks you through a leveling experience when it comes to the certification. So I think that's always an incredible start. And there's so many other industry certifications as well, but sometimes it's kind of hard to know like where to even start and also like what my background should be to assimilate into that. I also always recommend folks to take classes on like LinkedIn Learning or other external areas where they can hear sort of experiences, even these podcasts. Like these are informal conversations, but there's so much to gather and to learn in these experiences. But ultimately, we're so proud of our partnership with Fortinet in order to be able to provide these programs to them, because one thing is to say, hey, there's this big nebula of trainings in theory that you can take. And another one is to say, hey, we have people that are really passionate about this, that have carved a space in their organization to support women of color, to support veterans, to support, different minority organizations. And here's what they've cultivated to bring you kind of to that next level professionally. So that is definitely something that we're very proud of and that we're very grateful to offer.
And I see it in maybe even 4 tiers. There is the early education for cybersecurity that we bring all the way to elementary school, middle school, high school, just to make sure that people are cyber safe, but are also aware that this field exists and what we're doing as cybersecurity defender today. There is the training for people who would like to either enter or transition that field, the level 1 to 4, that talks about current technologies and what is the language for them and what they're doing and what they're trying to protect against within the context of full attack and defending. And for people who are in the field, as you mentioned, we constantly have to stay on our toe and keep learning. So we do see the need for constant training. And even if you go all the way to one of the most technical roles in cybersecurity, which is threat hunting inside a SOC, because everything changed so frequently in the attack landscape, we see the need to train them on a constant level to just know what's going on and to curve the time for it. So I fully agree that education about your field is important. It shouldn't stop you from joining the field. Just start. But there is enough tools to support you to gain basic knowledge all the way to very advanced capabilities to ease your merge and keep progression in your career once you're in, because there are endless opportunity to grow here. So we tend to talk about cybersecurity mainly as the technical part of it, but there are so many other roles within that field. Like I moved, I want to say, almost touched each and every one of them. I was a sales engineer, I was a salesperson, I managed teams of sales, I was doing marketing, I was running campaign, I was doing product management, product marketing. There is like endless opportunity for you to apply skill set within that field, and everything that you learn just help you build on top of it. So your mentoring program is something that I probably find the most empowering part of it, because people who went to that path could actually teach others about the flexibility and the options that you have to grow within that field. So you're never bored, which,
And I
choice.
currently work. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said it's a great choice when you choose career. Am I going to be bored after 2 years, or are you going to keep me, engaged?
It's so funny. So I work in data privacy, and sometimes I'm like, there's too much going on. Like, there's always a new regulation, there's always a new kind of best practice, and something that you mentioned was being kind of like cross-functional when it comes to your approach. And I work as a senior privacy program manager in the tech space, and this is something I'm constantly learning, because you'll work with people, the engineers or the product developers, and you'll say privacy is important at all stages. And some of the responses at some point in history could be, well, I'm an engineer, like, what do I need to do about that? Or I'm a product, developer, and what exactly is my role in that? And part of my job is training and awareness, and kind of saying, like, the privacy by design lifecycle is really integrated through all aspects of our organization. And we work cross-functionally, across departments. I work with people internationally in order to implement this. And so it's also, there's like a training where I'm educating people within my own career space to kind of, and we're educating each other to kind of learn about how do all of these different layers come together to ultimately provide the best and most enhanced layer of user privacy and user trust.
Yeah, and I know we're almost at the end of our time, but I do want to touch about a story that we both share, and this is actually narrowing our conversation to women in cybersecurity. We're currently at 24% of the workforce. I believe that you should hire based on skill, but I do want to see more of us in that field to begin with gaining those skills. And I know there is a lot of emphasis of starting early and talking about STEAM and cyber in high school. And as I mentioned, we go all the way down to those levels as well. I personally had a different background than you, Samantha. I actually started in that field at the age of 14, but both of us are in that field now. So I would say that STEAM is important. Please invest. Please don't shy away from technical degrees just because of the halo around them of what you think they mean, but also don't stop yourself from transitioning into cyber if you don't have that background. There is a lot of openness here to different types of thinking. Like you mentioned, there is correlation between so many functions, and everything and anything that you learn and bring in can find a space here. So I do want to open it to all of the women here. And I think we talked about perception of how hard it is to get into technology, that you wonderfully demonstrate that it's actually false. So thank you for doing
it. Absolutely. And one of the things that I personally love about technology is that I never feel like I have to sacrifice parts of my personality or my skill set to show up. I'm a very creative person, and I feel I still am able to use that. I have to think critically. I have to problem solve. I have to strategize. I have to think creatively about how we approach organizations internally. How do we pitch information to them and get them interested in privacy? How do we kind of communicate it externally to other individuals and get them excited about it? Cybersecurity, I think, it has this stigma, and I think it's really, there's like this mental barrier to entry. And ultimately at Latinas in Cyber, we're passionate about kind of looking past that and saying, like, what can you do for cyber, but also what can you offer to it, and what can that relationship simultaneously grow from? I worked with individuals that had psychology backgrounds. I worked with individuals that came from all different walks of life. And I also was part of the interviewing process on campuses. And one of the things I advocated for was like, let's look outside the College of Engineering and the College of Business. I know that there are kids in liberal arts colleges that are passionate about this, that have the writing skills, they have the soft skills, the communication skills, they have the critical thinking, the problem solving, and the ability to see beyond maybe like the initial aspect of an equation or, an aspect of cyber. So I personally am really passionate about that. And I think once we continue to encourage that, it's definitely not a lack of skills that we're facing. It's really just a lack of representation, and maybe it's involvement. And the White House is actively working to sort of combat that. Their cybersecurity strategy was just announced, and it did highlight a critical emphasis on women of color, on first-generation Americans and immigrants, on the LGBTQ community, on people that deserve to be in these spaces and that just need to know that it's possible.
And if all of this passion around this very diverse field and how interesting it is and the growth opportunity that you have in it was not enough, I do want to call to women as well and say this is probably one of the best paid job today out there. There is a skill shortage. So if we didn't entice you to our, excitement of being a part of that team, this is also a sidekick. You're actually allowing yourself, to gain financial freedom in a place, that is interesting and will allow you to grow. And we're all here to support you as you decide and do those transitions. Samantha, thank you so much. Not only for being here, but for actually taking the initiative to build those groups and, reach out to communities and make sure that the people join us, and especially that women join us in this path. And for every woman who is looking now and saying, should I not? I highly encourage you to go and look on, Fortinet.com for training and career development. We do offer them for free. We have more than, million people trained a year on them. Take a peek, see if it's, any interest of you, and do reach out to other women within the communities to ask them about their experience and their shifts. We're all here to support you. Samantha is, as she mentioned, leading one of those groups, and you can see the passion and the desire to help all of you transition. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Karin. Appreciate it. It's truly an honor. And I wanted to just emphasize on one point that you said about the financial independence that it provides. I think that's really important. I also think it provides a lot of time independence. There's a lot of different flexibility work schedules. You can work hybrid, you can work remotely. There allows a lot of space for you to have your family and to be able to be supportive in those environments. And there's also a lot of different organizations that offer incentives and benefits. And I think ultimately, when we think about, especially Latina women in these spaces, there is a pay gap. And there is a pay gap that we acknowledged with Latina Payday, where it took almost a year and a half for us to make the same amount as other individuals in different career spaces. So it's not just a skill set need, it's not just like a passion need, but it's also a critical financial one that dictates, millions and millions of dollars of earning potential throughout your entire lifetime. So I love that you mentioned that. I just wanted to further hit on it. I think it's a perfect experience.
Join us. This is the conclusion.
This is your call to action. I feel like Rosie River over here.
Thank you again, and hope to see you all in our next episode. Thank you, Samantha.